We begin today's show in Honduras, where another indigenous environmentalist has been murdered, less than 2 weeks after the killing of renowned activist Berta Cáceres. Nilson Garcia was shot to death Tuesday after returning home from helping indigenous people who'd been displaced in a mass eviction by Honduran security forces. Garcia was a member of COPING, the Civic Council of Popular and Indigenous Organizations of Honduras, co-founded by Berta Cáceres. She won the prestigious Goldman Environmental Prize last year for her decade-long fight against the Agua Zarca Dam, a project planned along a river sacred to the indigenous Lenca people. She was shot to death at her home on March 3rd. In a statement, Honduran police said the two killings were unrelated. They called Nilson Garcia's murder a, quote, isolated act. But Honduran activists disagree. On Thursday, thousands converged in Tegucigalpa for the start of a mobilization to demand justice for Berta Cáceres and an end to what they say is a culture of repression and impunity linked to the Honduran government's support for corporate interests. 10 buses of indigenous and black Hondurans were reportedly stopped en route to the capital. Activists said some began walking toward Tegucigalpa after being forced to leave the buses. In the capital, demonstrators walked past the Mexican embassy to show solidarity with Gustavo Castro Soto, the sole witness to Berta Cáceres' murder, who remains inside the embassy. After Cáceres died in his arms at her home, Castro was interrogated and blocked from leaving Honduras to return to his native Mexico, even though he was accompanied by the Mexican ambassador and shot twice himself. One of Berta Cáceres' daughters, Olivia, spoke to Democracy Now! At the mobilization in Tegucigalpa.
Today, we are here to demand justice and an explanation for the crime of the death of my mother, Berta Cáceres. I'm her oldest daughter, and we've launched a struggle, a battle at the international level to exert pressure in order to demand that the aid agencies that fund these multinational corporations that come to plunder, to exterminate our people, to spill our blood in our territories, to create territorial conflicts, that they stop being financed, and that they leave our country, because we don't want international companies that come to finance death, blood, and extermination in our communities.
In a victory for Berta Cáceres' supporters on Wednesday, the Dutch Development Bank, FMO, and the Finnish Development Bank, Finnfund, said they would suspend their funding of the Agua Zarca Dam. In a statement, FMO said it was shocked by Nilson Garcia's murder and would halt all activities in Honduras. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., two activists scaled an art installation in front of the U.S. Agency for International Development Monday to oppose the agency's support for the dam. They unfurled a banner reading, "Stop Funding Murder in Honduras." Honduran activists say 8 members of COPING working to stop the Agua Zarca Dam have been murdered since construction began in 2013. On Wednesday, at another action in Washington, D.C., 2 activists interrupted a meeting of the Council of the Americas. They targeted the U.S. ambassador to Honduras, James Nealon, saying he has blood on his hands.
He has the blood of Berta Cáceres. He has the blood of Nilson Garcia. Estoy aquí para the United States funding. The United States funding por el pueblo Lenca.
In New York City on Thursday, hundreds of people, most of them women, gathered outside the Honduran mission to the United Nations, chanting, "Berta didn't die, she multiplied." Among those who participated was one of Berta Cáceres' 3 daughters, also named Berta, and a Lenca activist from Berta Cáceres' organization COPING. We're going to speak with them shortly. But first, in an international broadcast exclusive, we turn to new footage filmed by COPING members and its supporters in the hours before and days after Berta's assassination in Honduras. The video begins with Berta Cáceres herself conducting a training on March 2nd. Only hours later, she would be assassinated.
We have to understand why these projects are so important. The government has all of its institutions at the service of these companies because they are capable, as in Rio Blanco and the defense that we had in Gualcarque, because these businesses are capable of moving anti-terrorism commandos like the Tigre commandos, the military police, the national police, security guards, hitmen, etc. It's not a simple thing. There has to be something else deeper, underneath the surface, that moves all of that power. And we want to understand that better. We have to understand that, because we have the obligation as members of COPIN to have these debates anywhere. And this will help these resistance struggles that you're fighting there in your communities.
Only hours later, early in the morning of March 3rd, Berta Cáceres was murdered in her home in La Esperanza. As the authorities took her body away, her brother Gustavo reacted to her death.
And what I ask of Juan Orlando Hernandez, look, here lies a true Linca who was never ashamed to be indigenous. What she did was to defend her people with her life, and she gave her life, and now we have her here in the back of a truck, in a bag, in a plastic bag, like anything. This can't happen in our country. What is happening? We demand, we demand, we demand. In the name of my family, my mother, this people, thousands and thousands of us, that they immediately investigate and that they not say things that aren't true and that they stick to the truth of what happened to my sister.
Berta had been a frequent voice on the local community radio station, La Voz Lenca. After her death, fellow activists took to the airwaves to denounce the murder.
We have to be alert, compañeros and compañeras, and we are not to be brought to our knees. At no point will we surrender. At no point will they sell us. If the dictatorship of Mr. Juan Orlando Hernandez Alvarado, if the executives of the company DESA and the hitmen, if they are thinking that they are going to stop the struggle of our organization, ladies and gentlemen in power, you are wrong.
The news of Berta's assassination spread quickly, and on March 5th, thousands gathered for her funeral in La Esperanza.
We reject the patriarchal victimization that the Honduran state and the states in the region want to impose on us. We, the women and the people, reject it together, brothers and sisters. We reject it because we are criminalized women who are also living under death threats for shattering this power imposed by neoliberalism in our territories.
People took to the streets across Honduras to denounce her killing and to accuse the state of being complicit in her murder. Outside the local public prosecutor's office, activists said authorities have repeatedly ignored their reports of death threats.
When we come here to the public prosecutor's office, I've been present many times when people come here to report complaints. I've come here to accompany comrades, and the public prosecutor's office or the people who work here say that they are rabble-rousers and that they are against development. What kind of development, my friends? Killing comrades? Is that development?
No. One of the activists to denounce Berta's murder was Miriam Miranda, a leader of the Garifuna community in Honduras. The Garifuna are descendants of indigenous Caribbean people and African slaves.
We want our children to breathe clean air for generations to come. We want to have rivers. We don't just want to wash our clothes, we want to be able to drink the water, to be able to have water in our homes. That is the struggle we are fighting. For that, they kill us. For that, they killed Berta Cáceres.
One of Berta's 3 daughters, Laura, resolved her mother's fight would continue.
My mother has not been killed. My mother has been planted, and she is born and reborn. And this, which they tried to put out today, this fire that is the struggle of the people, the only thing they did was ignite it more, because they tried to put out the fire with gasoline.
That was Berta Cáceres' daughter, Laura, speaking after her mother's death in Honduras. When we come back from break, we'll be joined by Laura's sister, that is Berta's daughter, Berta Zuniga Cáceres. And we'll be joined by Liliana Esperanza Lopez, who is with COPIN, the Civic Council of Popular Indigenous Organizations of Honduras. That's the group that Berta Cáceres founded. This is Democracy Now! We'll be back in a minute.